Hey, seventh graders. Sorry that I can't be with you today during seventh hour. I am out with Maggie. She's at a doctor appointment. So I decided a video would be a good way to lay out expectations and remind you about some important things before you get today to work on Learning Target 4.02. So, one of the biggest, most important things that I can remind you about Learning Target 4.02 is that you have to have the direction sheet on your computer open and keep going back to it over and over and over again. I'm afraid that you're getting busy playing the Loftcraft game, which is cool. I'm glad you're enjoying the game and enjoying that process, but you have to make sure that you're also thinking about how it's going to become final evidence. And so, make sure this direction sheet is up. The most important, part of the direction sheet are those 4 numbered questions. Notice that you need to do this on a separate sheet of paper. If you want to write it down, you can, or if you want to do a Google Doc, I'm fine with that. Just make sure it's separate from this direction sheet. And then make sure you're answering all 4 questions. And this red line, this red sentence is really important. Make sure they're complete and detailed sentences. I have to make sure that you really understand the steps for how a bill becomes a law. So, for example, the first question says, does the game define the purpose of laws? Well, this is important to know what a purpose of a law is. So what laws do is they protect our rights and our freedoms. Laws tell us what's expected of us, and it tells us what's unacceptable for us as citizens. So as you think about the question, you have to think, does Lawcraft ever do it? Does Lawcraft ever say, these laws are so important because? If you think it does, notice where my cursor is. If it does, if you do see those purposes explained there, then you need to explain where you see it. So that's a great example of time to take a screenshot and say, hey, here's where the purposes of the law are. I found it right here in the game, and explain them a little bit. If not, if you think it never says that laws are important because they give us guidance, they give us freedom, they protect us, then you explain. The game does not ever tell us the purpose of laws. What the game should have done is said that laws protect us and give us freedom, etc., obviously in your own words. Question 2, does the game ever say where the ideas for new bills come from? So you got to remember, who comes up with the ideas? If that happens in the game, you can explain where it happens in the game, or again, you could take a screenshot of it and explain it. And if you think, no, this game never once tells you where bills can come from, well, then you probably need to explain that and say what should have been there, what's missing in the game. Now, I know we've been over this, but this one is really, really important. Step 3, does the game explain all the steps to how a bill becomes a law? Notice in parentheses it says you should mention all 7 steps. So for number 3, I would see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbered all the way down, and each and every step is talked about. I've already had some people submitting evidence, which is wonderful to be ahead of pace. I have some students who submitted evidence, and their response was, no, it doesn't cover all the steps. You have to talk about each and every step separately, one at a time. That step's going to take you a while. So even though it's called question 3, it really has lots of different parts. And then number 4, what does the game show that just memorizing the steps doesn't cover? So in other words, what's cool about the game that you don't necessarily learn from doing the purple packet? So what's the advantage of doing hands-on interactive learning compared to just memorizing stuff on a purple packet? Speaking of the purple packet, make sure that this is out as well. Obviously mine is the online one, but please make sure you have your purple packet laying next to you. You have the direction sheet in front of you. You have your other doc where you're answering the direction sheet questions. And again, you have to do the first 4. If you're interested in extends, I would suggest that you sign up for a win time to conference with me, and we can talk about what that extends looks like. But for now, just really focus in on those first 4 questions to get to MEETS level. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but for step 3, you have to talk about each step one at a time. You may not clump them together. And again, your purple sheet is going to help you with that. If you're someone who finishes and you submit it to Empower, make sure you also hand in the purple packet to our guest teacher today. And then the other thing that you can do is work on other work in kind of a personal flex situation. If there's something you need in your locker, just use our ePass system, and you may go get that other work to do. or if you want to get headphones out and watch CNN Student News and see what's been going on. But please make sure you're using that time wisely. If you have a book to read, you could be reading that. Partway through the class period today, because a block is a long time to sit and listen, partway through, if you need a stretch break, you may. That stretch break needs to happen within the classroom today. If you do need to go get a drink again during that stretch break, use the ePass system. But otherwise, you can have like a 3-minute stretch break within the classroom just to kind of walk away from your Chromebook, not worry about how a bill becomes a law. And then after about 3 minutes, you can get back to work and use the focus that I know you all have. And I think that's it. The work that you're doing should be done by the end of block today. On Friday, we're moving on to a new learning target. So if you're not done, it becomes homework to finish up, or it becomes something to do during win time. But today is the last in-class time I'm going to give you to work on how a bill becomes a law. And just in case you missed it the first 2 times, here's time number 3. For step 3, you have to talk about each and every step separately. That's important. Thank you.